Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. Back from a very short hiatus, folks. We do apologize, no post-show last week. Health issues took us on the shelf. Bringing it in, my co-host, the Santa Fe Bomber himself, the New Mexico native, one half of the Bloody Water Podcast, the leader of the head-to-head tournament this year in 2023. My man, how are you feeling, AJ?
Woo, brother Derick, I am doing very well over here, my man. It's been an interesting week, but things in the life are going well, and I'm excited to break down UFC in the O2 Arena. We're back in London, folks, and we have some Irish staples making their return. London, everybody across the pond. You already said it, Derick. Tom Aspinall and Tybura. It's going to be a fun fight card all around. I'm excited to break it down. How you feeling about this card, Derick?
I'm feeling good, man. First off, it's got the big fight feels, right? You're going outside of the Apex. We're not in hot Vegas right now. They're out in London doing their thing. But it's a lot of these, like you had mentioned, international prospects, European prospects, and contenders that we're seeing, which sometimes you don't really get enough of. So I love me a good UFC London card. I love when the heavyweights are going at it. And this is a 6-fight main card. So we got a lot to break down. Folks, we're not going to take up too much more time. Let's just take a quick look at the scoreboard below. 72, 47, and 2 from my man AJ. 66, 53, and 2 from myself. AJ, real quick, give the people a word on where we're at in the year and what is still at stake this year.
Folks, this time of year is when the grind really starts to culminate. All right, you can see those numbers. Derick just listed it out, but all that means to me is my man is inching just closer and closer to cutting down that lead and starting to overtake. There's flashbacks. If you've been paying attention to this show for a couple years, it's reminiscent of last year. It's reminiscent of things that have happened in the past. So personally, I'm a little more motivated to get it going. And folks, with this week's fight card, with it being a little bit of underknown people, there's some interesting picks coming up. I'm excited to highlight them for you. This race is finally getting to that culmination spot of taking off.
You know what's funny, man, is that reminds me, Dan Hooker just had a really good quote, man, and I love it. It's probably one of my favorites now. And he says, I love this sport, right, mixed martial arts, but I love that moment in a fight where it no longer becomes a sport and it turns into a fight, where it's no longer about who's more talented, it's about who wants it more. And sometimes, like I said, luck plays a big factor into this. Sometimes who wants it more. So folks, we're here, Bloody Water Podcast, your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. And with that being said, subscribe if you haven't. We're almost to 650. Let's get there. We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's jump into the TLDR, AJ. Let's talk about what we have on the quick screen. And I think that there's been a pretty simplistic choice that we've made on over here, where we're just going to flash this on the screen. If you're interested in figuring out why we're going with these picks, stick around on the show and we'll tell you all about it. AJ, we have 3 consensus picks this week: Tom Aspinall, Molly McCann, Nathaniel Wood. We don't got to talk about why we're picking who we're picking, but in one sentence, what's your theme for your picks this week?
Ooh, a theme, Derick. That's a good one, brother. I'm going with momentum. I'm going with the style, or go with momentum. That's the best way to say it. Go ahead. What are you going with for your theme?
I'm going with underappreciated fighters who I personally think their skill set isn't as hyped up as where their narrative is. We talk about narratives all the time here. The UFC has to build up these good stories. Folks, we're going to explain it in depth as we move on to this main card, but like I just mentioned, if you have not subscribed yet, you should absolutely hit that subscribe button. You should share the show with your friends, and like we always say, tell a friend to subscribe. You know what time it is. AJ, I know you're streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Santa Fe Bomber. Talk to the people about what's upcoming here in the future with your own personal endeavors.
Folks, we're switching platforms over there from Twitch, making it more accessible, because if you're watching this show right now, you're already on YouTube, so why not make it one click easier and just head over to the Santa Fe Bomber channel. We're getting a whole branded situation going on over there, whether it's all my art, breakdowns of fights, we're gaming, we're hanging out. The biggest thing is that community that we built over there on Twitch is headed right over here to one of the best homes on YouTube. We'll be one click away for you fine folks. Make sure you're over there pressing that subscribe button. We'll drop the link when it's ready and available.
That's right. So things in progress right now, folks. I don't got nothing personal going on. So listen, we're going to leave that to my man AJ over there. He's holding it down for the BWP. But in the meantime, enough of the self-promotion. AJ, you ready to talk some fights, yeah?
Let's get it, brother.
Let's get it.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Tom Aspinall, he returned. It's been almost a year in the making since he suffered a pretty horrific knee injury against Curtis Blades, and what was potentially, kind of like a title eliminator for the heavyweight championship right there. Now, Tom Aspinall, number 5 ranked in this division, he gets a pretty tough test, AJ. Marcin Tybura. When you look at him on paper, he's got pretty impressive stats, but when you look at the narrative behind Marcin Tybura, I think a lot of people are looking at this as a layup for Tom Aspinall. I want your opinion right now on why Marcin Tybura is going to be much more formidable than people think.
Derick, the grit and the toughness alone that Marcin Tybura possessed initially, it will get him past a lot of what people are expecting. Tom Aspinall himself addressed it. Marcin Tybura is a very well-rounded fighter, but with the hit list he's been having to go against, with the nails or the hammers that he has had to face, Marcin Tybura has really grown into passing or surpassing that middle tier heavyweight division that we're always talking about. There's tiers to the heavyweights. We've seen it happen. And Marcin Tybura has been climbing those ropes steadily and consistently and looking very sharp on the hands and feet. One of the interesting ones, I'm excited to see how he handles the ground game. We know a lot of these, especially Marcin Tybura, he can get lost in the mash 'em up, if you will. The just getting body to body in the clinch, nothing really going on. But when he's not controlling the fight, Marcin Tybura tends to struggle. Do you see another big X factor that Marcin Tybura is going to bring to the fight that's going to kind of surprise Tom Aspinall?
I think you kind of nailed them all pretty much on the head right there. But the biggest thing that I would take away is simply that durability and the will to win, man. For a heavyweight, Tom Aspinall, once again, he mentioned this too. For a heavyweight, when you start getting roughed up pretty bad, a lot of guys look for a way out. They look for a way to try to get out of that scenario. Tybura wins a lot of these fights based on getting smashed pretty much in the very early beginnings of the fight and then weathering the storm and being there when you're no longer able to be there yourself. Tybura does have some big wins. Walt Harris, Sergey Spivak, Ben Rothwell, Blagoy Ivanov. He's got on paper, a better hit list than Tom Aspinall. He's also been in the UFC much longer than Tom Aspinall. But AJ, we kind of got to address the elephant in the room, right? We love Tom Aspinall. Big fan of him here on this program. I've claimed him to be a future champion for a while now. But bro, knee injury wasn't just a little messed up meniscus, bro. It looks like we have a torn MCL, a torn meniscus, and a damaged ACL all was suffered in that Curtis Blades fight, which is crazy to have that much damage from such a non-real contact injury. But coming from our knee specialist here who has suffered the knee injuries yourself, Tom Aspinall, he's been itching. A year-long layoff is probably enough time to feel good. But you had mentioned it before, man. You don't always feel great mentally body connection right away, right?
Correct. You're correct, Derick. And the big thing that kind of concerns me with this, even if you're feeling good, you're in the gym, you're not necessarily going at the level you were for so long. When you're a normal fighter, every day you're in the gym, giving it your all, 110%, never quit, never die, just going consistently. Well, you get that knee injury. You're on the shelf for a couple months. You're chilling. Then you get back to the gym. You're not going 100%. You're going at what you can. You're 100%, but it's not what you were previously used to. So what concerns me most for Tom Aspinall, maybe he's feeling good. He's tired of hearing about the knee, but what concerns me most is the fact that he didn't have the length of time he's so used to get prepared for these fights. Sure, he might have done it for the last 2 months at that 100% he was used to, but when he was doing that in the past, it was for the full 6 months, 8 months, whatever long his training camp is. So that right there kind of plays a mental fortitude. I'm curious, Derick, if this is a little bit more of, I'm angsty, I need to get off the couch, this is what I want to do. I'm pushing myself a little bit further than I should be, than the doctors recommend. We all know doctors are cautious, but sometimes fighters are the opposite of cautious. What's the word? Experimental? I don't know the word, Derick. But either way, do you think there's going to be that kind of ring rust that comes out of it, or even babying of the knee that we're talking about? Both of those situations I can see come into play.
I want to say yes, because it seems like that's an easy answer. Yeah, of course, right? But then again, he's already addressed that elephant of saying hey, Tybura, if he has an easy goal, he's going to try to kick my knee out. And I would do the same exact thing if I was in his spot. So I think my man is a little bit ready for that. But, we don't know. That's one of those unknowns that we'll find out come fight night. But we have to look at this in terms of handicapping, breaking down, wagering, whatever you want to call it. We have to look at this as if we have somewhat of a certainty over the type of performance Tom Aspinall is going to bring. No one's ever certain. But at the end of the day, man, this looks like a pretty good spot. London, I mean, you have the opportunity, you're fighting in front of your home people and all that to really put on a showcase performance against Marcin Tybura. But this is the thing, man. Minus 150 is the TKO prop for Tom Aspinall. They think he's gonna knock him out, just get him out of there early. I'm pretty sure the over-under on this one is like 1.5 rounds, right? It's not very high. But at the end of the day, Aspinall, 100% finish rate in all of his wins. I mean, Marcin Tybura, he's got a ton of decisions on his record. Even though he's known to be the decision guy, I think the number is 14 of his 24 wins are via finish. So he knows how to finish people. But this goes past round 2. We really haven't seen that from Tom Aspinall. Hasn't gone past round 2 in his last 10 fights. And only one of those fights, I mean, listen, man, only one of those fights went to round 2, and that was against Andrei Arlovsky, and he submitted him in like the first 10 seconds. So, like, we can get starstruck over all of these stats or whatever, but do we see him getting past round 2? That's the real question.
That's an interesting one there. I do see him getting past round 2 is because of the durability that Marcin Tybura possesses, because he hasn't been knocked out since 2019, Derek, and that was against Augusto Sakai when Sakai was coming onto the scene, a little unknown and still on that big rush we saw him have. Before that, Shamil Ibrahimov. So Tybura can get knocked out, but has since then, he's been doing the knocking out. He's been winning the decisions. He's been the durable fighter in there. So it makes it a little rough to say they're not going to just end it in the round 1. But just because of that durability, I'm actually looking at that plus 250 submission prop, Derek. I see that a little more juicy than that minus 150. Everybody's expecting the knockout. But when you're trading blows back and forth, your knee's a little wobbly, you're a little tired, you're a little underprepared, if you will. Man, a submission on a guy that doesn't necessarily have the best submission chops sounds very, very tempting to me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's kind of what I'm leaning to. I like the submission prop for Tom Aspinall. I mean, if you look at Marcin Tybura and you look at his last 2 losses, they were both, or last 3 losses, 2 of them are knockouts, 1 is a decision. The point is, it's not a guy that gets submitted very often. You don't have a lot of high-level submission artists in the heavyweight division anyways. I just think Tom Aspinall breaks the mold, man. I think he is that guy that does not fit the mold of anybody else. He's kind of like a Gelton Almeida to a degree. And when it comes down to it, man, I think we should just kind of give our predictions here. Looks like a smash spot for Aspinall. We know Tybura is going to make it a lot tougher than we probably imagine. But I do think that the reality is Tom Aspinall gets it done under 3. I mean, do you feel me there? Am I seeing it wrong, or what do you think?
I'm with you, Derek. I think Tom Aspinall gets it done in under 3. And in fact, I'll just give my pick. I'm going to snag it before you do, Derek. I'm taking that 250 submission prop, and I'm going round 2. I think that's where Tom Aspinall gets his best work done.
All right, and fair play. And just because we do have some work that needs to be done on these prop bets, and I love me the juice of plus 250 for the submission prop, I will roll with that minus 150 TKO just for picks wise. Folks, if you're watching this and you're like, well, now I'm torn, they're both going to a different decision, then just play it safe and rock with that minus 450 Tom Aspinall money line. Tie it in with maybe Molly McCann over Stoliarenko. We'll talk about that more in a second, but this is kind of one of those more parlay plays, not a just straight hammer Tom Aspinall. Either way, Tom Aspinall, we see him with a big comeback against Marcin Tybura, and it should be a fun one. Now, let's talk about this one. AJ, I just talked about London, smash spot right here. Listen, all respect to Yulia Stoliarenko, fantastic submission artist. 9 of her 10 wins have come by submission, armbar specifically. And she's matched up with a Molly McCann, who's coming off of a bad submission loss against Erin Blanchfield. So on paper, you would imagine this makes sense. However, AJ, I have a theory. Please correct me if I am wrong here. I think that Molly McCann and the UFC are hand in hand, just like Full Send and the UFC are. And I think that this is kind of a showcase bout for a Molly McCann. This is a fun fighter, puts butts in seats. She's exciting. And if she can deliver another nasty finish over Stoliarenko, even though she just lost to Blanchfield, stock still goes up. What do you think?
Derek, we speak about narrative all the time on this show, and Molly McCann, especially Meatball, when she is Meatball, is a perfect example of a fighter who is worth the narrative. Mm-hmm. The UFC saw the golden goose and was like, all right, come on, girl. Like, even with the loss, take your time off, do your thing, be the person you need to be to come back and provide the services you did. Because at one point, Molly McCann was a star and brought arguably the second most eyes to the Irish nation. I mean, we all know Connor's number 1, but Molly McCann, Paddy Pimblett, there's some names that are coming up, and even there's one on this prelims we'll get to. But Derek, the big thing for Molly that I'm still a little torn about for personally, we saw, I don't know if you watched her pre-fight presser, but I was watching it and I saw a growth of Molly McCann, kind of development, if you will, in the character, not only, but will that affect the fighter? She's always talking when she goes into fights, it's going to be locked in, dead set. Do you think the growth that she's taken in character will have a positive or negative outcome on the way she fights?
Well, I'm going to pause you for a second so you just don't get annihilated in the comments. Molly McCann is not an Irish fighter, my friend. We don't have a ton of Irish fighters. We have a Irish fighter, your sleeper we'll talk about, but this is London, right? Unless I'm incorrect. These are the Scousers, the Liverpool folks.
Oh,
you know
correct,
what I'm saying? So not Irish, but let's put some respect because people are going to be watching this. Yeah, exactly. But
we'll roast me in the comments, but don't roast it too hard.
Exactly. There we go. Right. But if you're talking about the pre-fight presser, I do agree with you. We saw a stoic Molly McCann. We saw humbled Molly McCann after a beatdown against Erin Blanchfield, where arguably she suffered the worst loss of her entire career in terms of the methodology of how it went down. Right. So she noted, hey, this is really calm. This is probably the calmest event that I've been a part of, but I don't think that you should allow those pre-fight pressers to fool you, because when Molly McCann fights, I've only seen her fight with one fight style, and that is nothing but absolute aggression, walking forward with reckless abandon. And when you have a fighter who you do have to watch out for with that armbar with Yulia Stoliarenko, but who doesn't really offer much else in terms of being a specialist, I think Molly McCann will feel more confident than she ever has. So just know, don't get taken down, and then let's put in some work. So with that being said, I think that the growth of Molly McCann is evident, but let's talk about this part, because this is the real thing that I'm interested in. When we associate Molly McCann, do we associate Molly McCann with flyweight championship contention, or do we associate Molly McCann with a absolutely fun fighter who I will always watch, no matter if it's for a title or not, or if it's against, Joe Blow down the street? What do you think?
100% the latter, Derek. At least for me, Molly McCann is that persona that will just drive money. She's the female version of Red Panty Night that has the growth going there. She's fun. Everybody wants to see her. There's room for that in the sport, and it's rough because some fighters, a lot of fighters, I should say, see the need to be one or the other. Fortunately for Molly, I think she possesses the skills to do both, and thankfully she can always fall back on being a very fun, entertaining fighter as well.
100%. Now, let's talk about the actual fight. Plus 325 submission prop for Yulia Stoliarenko. This is the reality, AJ. In my opinion, it's armbar or bust. If you do not get that armbar, I do not see a win coming from Stoliarenko, who is 1-4 in the UFC. I also don't really imagine that she will be rostered if she loses again. And you have to take into consideration, this is the other big thing we haven't brought up. Yulia Stoliarenko says, you know what, let's take a shot at flyweight. Even though, historically, bantamweight, featherweight, collapsed on the scale. I don't know if it was once, maybe even twice. We have to ensure that she makes weight for this contest, or else this conversation doesn't matter. But I mean, this seems like one of those last ditch efforts. This seems kind of like the TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt effect of like, I'll just go down just so I can finally get something together, and then it just doesn't work out. Do we see a diminished Yulia Stoliarenko at 125 pounds?
100%, Derek, 100%. I'm actually curious to see how those weigh-ins really look, because we're going to see definitely a depleted Yulia Stoliarenko, and how much she can rehydrate after that's going to be a big thing, because we know Molly McCann is going to bring the pressure. Will the cut be too much to crumble for the pressure? I'm curious, because I agree with you. She does have a tendency to especially drop off in fights too.
Do you lay $10 down on a plus 325 submission prop for Stoliarenko?
$10, hell yeah.
Because that goes to show there is confidence that she can get it done. We're not saying that this is just going to be one-way traffic for Molly McCann. I just imagine if she can avoid getting taken down, I see this as a pretty thorough victory for Molly McCann. All right, question time, AJ. Over and under 1.5 rounds.
Ooh. I'm taking the under, Derek. I'm taking the under. What about you?
All right. I mean, I don't know. I'm still conflicted. I'll wait till you give your pick, and then I'll give mine. How's it getting it done? How is Molly McCann getting this one?
That's an interesting one, Derek. I'm actually going plus 150 TKO late round one. I think we're going to see a little bit of calmer Molly McCann off the jump, then barrel through her, get it done before there's even a threat of the arm bar. What about you? How do you see this one getting done?
125 pounds, probably diminished performance. Molly McCann coming through, throwing hammers. I wanted to say decision, because oftentimes in these matchups, man, you can almost always smash that over 2.5. I just think Molly McCann comes in with reckless abandon and takes the TKO. So I'll rock with the TKO on this one just because I don't really see a submission coming out of Molly McCann, especially against Stoliarenko. But with that being said, showcase bout for the meatball minus 320 favorite, and we're locking it in for Molly McCann. Moving right on along, Nathaniel Wood versus Andre Touchy Fili. This is going to be such a fun fight right here, man, because Nathaniel Wood, now 2-0 at featherweight, historically been a bantamweight in the UFC, fights one of the longer tenured guys in Andre Fili, who it's a little refreshing that he comes into the pre-fight presser saying, I don't feel like a tenured veteran. I don't feel like I have all the answers. I feel like I'm a 23-year-old kid who still has a lot to prove. So when you have a guy with all of this experience, when you have a guy, AJ, that is 3-1 in split decisions in his last 10 fights, when you have a guy who is decisioning everybody left and right and isn't particularly finishing fights, how much of an uphill battle is that going to be for Nathaniel Wood, who might not pack the biggest pop in his shot, but can definitely outspeed a lot of these guys at 145?
It's a massive hill, Derick, especially with the hunger and the what's the word I'm looking for? Like qualifications that Andre Fili has. This dude's seen it all, done it all, yet still hungry for more. It's a hell of a mountain, man. Andre Fili, you said it. Nathaniel Wood, he's fast, he's speedy, he can do that. Well, guess who else is fast and speedy? The guy on the other side of the cage, Andre Touchy Fili. There's a reason his nickname is Touchy. This guy will hit you from spots you're not seeing, touch you up a little bit and dip out before you even know what's up. Nathaniel Wood. Now, the thing that excites me about Nathaniel Wood, Derick, he fights in a fast way, but in a way that works for him to be compact, to be solid, to be smooth and fast. He's not really loose in there. He's not making all these big motions. He doesn't rely on his speed. The speed comes from the technique, and he's very technically sound. I really like Nathaniel Wood for exactly that thing. Now the old question gets posed, Derick. Does the crazy versus the technique really work in this one? Which one will be the better, the flash or just the consistent boil? What do you think?
I think the technique is probably going to reign supreme in this one, but it is tough because Fili, even though he's not the wildest guy, right, in terms of his technique, not the most wild. We've seen much more unconventional, crazy guys. But I do think that if Wood loses focus for 5 seconds in the fight, Fili can crack him with something that will be able to rock him. Then I think it's going to be a little bit of trouble. Now, you have Nathaniel Wood, who's predicting a finish in this fight. He's saying, I think I'm going to get Andre Fili out of there. Well, if you look at Andre Fili, I mean, the man in his losses, Joe Anderson Brito, I mean, that's a specimen athletic dude who you can forgive a TKO loss there. Really, aside from that, he hasn't been finished in a long time, man, since at least 2017, 2018. But on the other hand, he also has only one finish in that same stretch of time, bro. So it's like Andre Fili, this is the other theme that I didn't bring up yet. Andre Fili goes on the road to London, right? You're fighting in the home enemy territory, right? And you think he's going to decision Nathaniel Wood? Like, that's the part right there where I'm like, you have to take that part into consideration, too. I think Nathaniel Wood thoroughly outpoints Andre Fili. I think it's a back-and-forth close battle. But I think that the one thing that Andre Fili will not be able to keep up with, I truly do believe, is that speed of Nathaniel Wood. Even though he's touchy, even though he'll just pop you up here and there, I think Wood has put it on display in his last 2 fights, man. He's faster than these guys, and he makes it work. So what do you think?
I agree with you. I actually see this one going to a decision as well, Derick. I think the chess match they're going to have, like you were saying with the Dan Hardy quote, that's going to last for a little bit. But once this one becomes a fight, then we're going to really see how these guys kind of falter and where the steps are going to be taken. And I think Nathaniel Wood is going to falter less. Unfortunately for Touchy Fili, he's seen a lot of those things, but I'm always curious to see how he actually grows from there. Well, this is another answering point for him. He's had a lot of them, like you said. He's had a lot of these contentious matches. So a lot of split decisions on his record, some going his way, a couple knockouts. Joe Anderson Brito, can't count him against it. But still, all of those instances weigh on his head in that fight once those hard moments come. Once Nathaniel Wood is still in there, crisp as can be, do those other shots kind of start to creep in? Does that experience kind of hold down an anchor for Touchy Fili? I'm curious, man. It's an interesting.
I'm curious too. And when you look at it, it's not the biggest discrepancy in their records, man. It's 19-5 for Wood. So what is that? My math sucks. 24 fights, right? 24. Andre Fili, we're looking at about like 30 or so, right? Like 31. So it's not that much of a discrepancy. I just will say this, man. I think that for Andre Fili, the other thing you have to take into consideration is if he gets put on his back too much in this fight and just gets controlled, because we know Nathaniel Wood, BJJ brown belt, this dude got some sick takedowns, good control. I think that's the other factor. If this is a pure striking match, much closer fight. But given those extra, this is MMA, you know what I mean? I like Nathaniel Wood. I like the upswing. And going off of the picks that you had mentioned earlier, I like the momentum of Nathaniel Wood here. So give me that one. Give me a decision. Nathaniel Wood, I like the minus 190. I'm not really putting too much stock in that plus 550 TKO, but how do you see it, AJ?
Yeah, I'm not really putting too much stock in that 550 or that 850 submission, Derek. I'm with you on the decision. I think this one's going to be more of a back and forth brawl. It's going to be a very fun fight. Give me Nathaniel Wood and give me the decision.
All right, fair enough. AJ, can I tell you I've been waiting a long time to see Paul Craig do the right thing and move down to middleweight? I didn't think it'd be a possibility. I didn't think he'd actually be able to cut the weight. But I would always look at him and I'm like, man, this dude is such a savage. But he is, 6'3", right? Yeah, you're tall. He's never had a light heavyweight's frame. And now he decides, I'm moving down to middleweight, and I want to take, well, you didn't get a choice. You got matched up. I'm matched up with a guy who is pretty much my clone, except there's a couple fundamental differences that we're going to have to talk about. But before anything, what do you think about the move to middleweight for Paul Craig?
I love it and hate it at the same time, Derek. I love it because we've seen this coming from him. You're right. Not the best build for 185, but now that he's jumping down, he's going to be very solid. He's going to look good. Paul Craig is going to be fighting at a different kind of pace and with style, not necessarily style, but pace and speed than we're used to seeing at middleweight, man. I'm excited for this butt on the other end of that sword because it is a double-edged sword, Derek. Will he actually do a good weight cut? I know I was watching his pre-fight presser and they said they did a bad one first just to test out how he feel. Now they're going to do the good one. Not sure if, as a coach, not sure if that is the best strategy, but I'm excited to see how he looks on the scale. Because if Homeboy is just depleted, rough, feeling it, we've seen a lot of these older fighters that have come to, a point in their career where they drop down just to get one back. We listed it before, TJ Dillashaw's. One we were just talking about before, Derek.
Cody Garbrandt?
No, Julius Stoliarenko.
Oh, yeah. That's
Cody
right.
Garbrandt as well. That's a good one, too. But this is, will that aspect also play into this fight with Paul Craig?
I think it all just comes into the consideration of what he normally walked around at, man. If you get a little more disciplined with your diet and you cut down the weight, I'm sure you should be fine. The other thing you have to consider is that there probably should be a weight class in between 205 and 185 because you can be a tweener, and it can be tough to kind of bounce between both. One more time, just to clarify, because like I said, the people, they do be roasting in the comments. Paul Craig moving down from 205 to 185. We've seen some interesting things at 205, now here at 185. And going against Andre Munoz, who just got his 9-fight win streak snapped by all-in Brendan Allen in his last fight, you have to take into consideration the two holes that these fighters pretty much have in their game. And I think it's pretty similar, man. Both of them are not incredible strikers, right? Munoz has a fantastic left hand out of that southpaw stance. Paul Craig, really nice check hooks. Neither fighter have impressive wrestling. And I think that's the biggest downfall is that off their back, both of them can do nasty things. I see Munoz as much more of a top control jiu-jitsu guy versus a bottom game jiu-jitsu guy. Paul Craig is better off of his back, in my opinion. But the thing is how do you get the fight there? And we know what's one of Paul Craig's specialties, AJ. You throw a kick, you catch the kick, treetop him, take him down. However, Paul Craig tends to eat a lot of shots in those spots. And if you're talking about a diminished chin due to a weight cut, it does worry me. But then again, does Andre Munoz, does he pack the punch of a Jamal Hill or a Magomed Ankalaev or a Kennedy Nchekwu or a Shogun Hua or a Nikita Krylov, AJ? That's the question that we need to ask. What do you think?
I don't think so, Derek. I was just browsing the notes right now to see the last time. Okay. I was looking at the wrong side. Andre Munoz, has he won one of his fights? Yeah, it was a long time ago, 2017 by TKO. It's been a while. Does he provide enough strength? Does he have the crack? Does he have the power to get a shot done? I don't think so, Derek, personally. Although I do think this is one thing we've seen multiple times. We have two jiu-jitsu specialists going at it. They end up not playing any jiu-jitsu at all and just standing there knuckle to knuckle in a phone booth in that kind of chaos. Do you see that's going to happen? I could already see you shaking your head and we're going to say nah. But if it does, who gets the better of that phone booth fight?
I can see it happening. Don't get me wrong. I think it's less likely to happen just because if you watch these guys in a strictly kickboxing matchup, it's not the prettiest thing that you've ever seen. And I think they'd both feel a lot better if they can get to their sweet spot, which is at least in the clinch or try to get some type of grappling going. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I think Andre Muniz probably gets the better in a kickboxing affair here, simply because we've seen him have to kind of go without like, oh, I can't get the takedown. Let's figure something out. You know what I mean? We've seen it. He has that really good left hand out of that southpaw stance. Decent jab. I just wouldn't say there's anything phenomenal out of the striking. Paul Craig, the difference is that his striking still isn't super duper sharp, right? Good check hooks, but he's very aggressive. And I think he's more aggressive than Andre Muniz. And I think his striking is going to lend itself into grappling opportunities. I don't always see the same thing from Muniz. I do see big shots coming from Muniz, but they both end up in that same kind of spot where you're halfway in on a double, your head is stuck on their hip, and then somebody could start dropping down elbows to get them out of there. Both fighters do it. You don't want to see it from either guy. But let's talk about the grappling. AJ, who gets the better out of a straight-up grappling affair right here, man? They both have such different styles, and they're so high level. And Paul Craig is going to be coming in with a very notable, I think, strength advantage, personally.
I do, and I do see Paul Craig coming in as the aggressor, as the more impactful one, especially off the jump. I think he's going to impose his will on Andre Muniz. And you're right. I also see Andre Muniz as being the better top jiu-jitsu player, where Paul Craig is going to be hunting for a finish. Man, that's an interesting one, Derick. I might have to just relegate this one to you just because you're the jiu-jitsu guy here. Which aspect of those two games do you actually see being more fruitful in the endeavor?
I think Paul Craig's jiu-jitsu is more effective for a finish. I think Andre Muniz's jiu-jitsu is more effective for a decision, even though he finishes a ton of guys. He has more submission wins, right? Muniz, it looks like he has 15 of 23 wins via submission, 13 of 16 for Paul Craig. So it's similar. If you look at like totality, percentage-wise, I mean, Craig does have a higher percentage, but neither here nor there. Paul Craig will pull guard. We've seen it multiple times, and he'll work a lot out of that butterfly hook, so they can go ahead and try to sweep from there, drop into a triangle, whatever the case may be. Andre Muniz, a lot of back takes, arm triangle situations, or just pure out control. I think that if we find ourselves in that situation, man, Andre Muniz wins because he's the guy on top. And in MMA, the guy on top wins, and it just is what it is, right? So that's why it's tough, but I cannot factor in enough, and I'm sorry, because coming from a guy who does jiu-jitsu, like, strength matters, dude. You can be technical as ever. If you're technical and really strong, like, that's just an extra weapon right there. That's why, AJ, I am inclined to rock with Paul Craig in this fight. Now, I do think that this is the difference, too. Plus 1,400 is a little confusing for me for a TKO prop. Paul Craig, out of these two fighters, from my film study, is the more likely to initiate ground and pound from submission attempts than Andre Muniz is. I feel like Andre Muniz is much more, I'll just fish for the submissions all day long. So I like that plus 1,400 TKO because I have a hard time seeing him submit Andre Muniz until Brendan Allen just submitted him in the third round. And the later the fight goes, those opportunities are going to open up. So, AJ, I'm inviting you. Give me your pick. How does this fight go down, and who wins and why?
Derick, I actually see this one going the distance. I'm taking the decision. I'm going with Muniz. I think we're going to see a very beautiful fight in the beginning once these guys are going. But the longer this fight goes, it's going to turn more and more into that ugly kickboxing you were talking about before. Maybe some grappling, some attempts, but I see the draining happening. I see these boys getting tired and having an absolute brawl. It's going to be a fun time, folks. When I said ugly kickboxing, don't get me wrong. It's still going to be a great time. We're going to see some solid technique from both these guys, but I think they're both just going to be just like two. I don't even know a good analogy for it, folks. It's going to be an entertaining fight. Give me Andre Muniz. Give me that 450 decision.
And I'm taking a wild swing here, folks, just because when you have two guys who are matched up so similar to each other, all conventional logic kind of goes out the window. I'm going to rock with Paul Craig here, and I'm going to rock with that plus 1,400 TKO. I want to see ground and pound finish off of a submission attempt, similar to the way that he did to, I mean, the Jamal Hill, it's counted as a TKO, but really you snap the arm and then they wouldn't stop fighting, so you have to then beat him up some more, right? Look at the fight before that, what he did to Shogun Hua, you know what I mean? I just think that he has the capacity to do that stuff. And with that being said, man, yeah. So give me the TKO, Paul Craig, decision for my man Andre Muniz on AJ's side. And with that being said, bro, let's just move on to the next one, man. Let's move on. All right, AJ. This is a fight right here that I think a lot of casual people would look at and be like, oh, this is just another fight. But I think that like us and the other people who are knowledgeable know that this is a banger right here. Jai Herbert versus Fares Ziam, the smile killer. What is it? The Black Country Panther for Jai Herbert?
Black Country banger, Derek.
Oh, there we go. Banger. That's right. Even better than a Panther. AJ, I want you to tell the people a little bit about Jai Herbert, and I'll come to take over on the Fares Ziam side. What should people expect out of Jai Herbert here?
Ooh, someone who's going to bring it, folks. Someone who's going to be there to fight like wherever you want to take it. Very well-rounded fighter. In my opinion, a little bit better of a striker. We've seen that he can crack you from a mile away and also dip out, cut some angles. He fights very, intent. He fights very intent on the way he's doing things so he can see things. He's a smarter fighter than he leads on to be. Very well-rounded, like I said, but what prevents the most challenge is his length and his speed in the striking. Derek, do you see anything different? And let me know a little bit of Fares Ziam, man. Another one of my favorite fighters, because this is going to be an absolute banger.
That's right. I would agree with the assessment of Jai Herbert. The only thing that I would add on to that, aside from what you said, is he fights like a man who is used to finishing his fights. And it's true because he has finished, 10 of his 12 wins via finish, right? I think if I'm looking at the notes right here, 9 knockouts, 1 submission in his 10 victories, right? So this dude is used to getting people out of there. And I think that's the number one key that is going to separate Herbert and Ziam here. Because Ziam, on the other hand, is a guy who doesn't look it, but wins all of the fights that you don't think that he should win. He wins them against grapplers. He wins them against strikers. He has a much more technical check hook flowy style than I think Jai Herbert does, who is a much more indomitable power-ish style, right? So for Fares, I think that he'll throw a couple longer extended combinations, dip, head movement, dip out, level change, go in for a takedown, work the clinch, drop an elbow, move out. I think there's just much more things looped and flow together for Fares Ziam than there is for Jai Herbert. And the big X factor here is that when you'd mentioned it many times before, AJ, right? When you're searching and hunting for a knockout, oftentimes that knockout doesn't come. Now, maybe Herbert was able to get that stuff coming up, Cage Warriors and all that, but you get to the UFC, you start looking for those knockouts. All these guys are looking for the knockout. So I would say that's the main difference. And Fares Ziam has some sick grappling that you would not expect. So Jai Herbert already called it out. I would not be surprised if Ziam goes and shoots for a takedown. Hopefully he's ready. But if he's not, I see Ziam being able to pretty much control the fight that way. Similar to, look at Ludovic Klein in the last fight. It was the draw. It was very close, controversial, right? But there's the grappling there. So fair assessment, or did we miss anything?
No, fair assessment. That's what I was going to hit on. That's where Ziam, for me, really kind of takes the coin flip in the ground game, in the control, because you're right, as intent and as much of a finisher Jai Herbert is, Fares Ziam flows with things, man. He's that Jet Li approach where he's the water in the teacup, man. He's going with the flow, finding the openings and executing on them very, very well. That's what makes this fight fun, because as well-rounded as both of these fighters are, they both have like an instinctual difference on how they go about the fight. Both very, very skilled, good striking, good distance management. Arguably one's better at the ground than the other, but the Jai Herbert still has a decent ground game, so don't just completely discount him on that. Mm-hmm. But in their intent, in their mind, in the way they approach the game, just a little bit different. It makes it for that little bit of X's and O's a little more fun.
Yeah, and no, Jai Herbert does have a good ground game. The difference is Ziam, I think he has 5 submission victories, 4 by knockout. So he's just a little more well-rounded. I think that's the best approach for Fares Ziam. Fares Ziam, sorry. Here's the thing, man. Jai Herbert, one of the big perks about him is his frame in this lightweight division. He's long, he's lanky, but guess what? So is Ziam, right? So Herbert, 6'1". Fares Ziam, 6'1". Herbert reached 77 inches. Ziam, 75 inches. So the point that I'm making here is that when those intangibles are stripped away and now it's just an even chess match right here, it's going to come down to a couple of things. Herbert, once again, gets some of that hometown love, UFC London, right? But Ziam's from Paris, so it's not like this is going to be anything too crazy. It's that European love still. I think that if Jai Herbert is on his best sprawl and brawl game, I think that he can run away with this by landing the more impactful shots during the fight. I think this might come down to significant strikes, damage versus total volume of strikes, which I think Ziam at the end of this fight will have a higher volume of strikes. I do not think that guarantees him the win, but I will say give me the edge here. As you can see, folks, at open, -115 for Ziam. It's a coin toss, pretty much. This might as well be a pick 'em, and I'm going to go with Fares Ziam on this one. Decision victory. How you see it?
Yeah, that decision, that's what I'm thinking too, Derek. It makes the most sense to me, but I'm going to be weighing on the other side. I'm weighing on the side of the power, the impact, instead of the control, because I agree. Ziam gets that control. It's going to be a very big mountain for Jai Herbert to climb. But when you're cracking from the distance, you're using your range, which arguably Jai Herbert utilizes his range at a better clip. Mm-hmm. They're both very good distance range management, but Jai Herbert just has this knack for finding you at the end of your punches. I think that's going to go the long way, but I don't see a finish here. Give me Jai Herbert, the Black Country Banger, by decision. This one, folks, has the potential to steal fight of the night for you, so don't just sleep on these folks because you don't recognize the name.
Absolutely. All right, man. And then opening us up, Lerone Murphy versus Josh Culibao. AJ, another one. People don't know these guys. Lerone Murphy, undefeated, right? 12-0-1 in his MMA career. Josh Culibao, one sole loss was in his UFC debut against Jalen Turner up a weight class. Come on, what are we talking about here? Both of these guys might as well just be undefeated, right? We should look at them from that aspect. And we should look at two guys in the featherweight division who... Once again, okay, let's talk about this, AJ. Why are these guys matched up? I guess that's the question. Why are these guys even matched up, and why are we not allowing them to build up a little bit more?
I was. If you didn't ask it, Derek, I was about to ask you, brother, because to me, there is no reason for these guys to be fighting at this time with so many other people in the featherweight division just looking for a scrap. It must be people are not answering the phone call when Uncle Dana hits them up, because this is two fighters who I can see going a very long way in the UFC. Folks, if you tuned into the Twitch stream, I was breaking this one down and the one before specifically because not a lot of people know about these fighters, but you need to. Very talented, very skilled, very young, and a very long time in this game. Their longevity is massive, so they're going to be around for a while. We say it all the time that we highlight the stars of tomorrow today, and these are two of them. Oh, this is another one, Derek. We might be on contention, but I can see this one being a coin toss because those odds, they're still close. They might not be as close as the other one, but this one's going to be a very, very fun fight. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you this much, man. I think that you have on one side a guy who has really risen to the task at hand in Lerone Murphy, who didn't particularly look the most UFC ready upon his UFC debut, but has quickly silenced all of that in his last couple of outings. And then you got Josh Culibao, who in my opinion has just been a massive overachiever, a guy who gets counted out time and time again. And then look at his last fight against Melsik Bagdasaryan, who had a stunning performance this past weekend, right? And he got the upset win, man. He was getting it kind of put on him. And then all it takes is one mistake, jumped on his back and choked him out. That's the thing about Culibao. This guy will not go away. He's very similar, in my opinion, and I don't even want to say like based on looks or anything because it's not. It's on fight style. He's very similar to me to a Jun Young Park, the Iron Turtle. These guys do not go away, and if you cannot keep up for 15 minutes of non-stop focus, attention, power, speed, all that, you will get taken advantage of. But the difference here, AJ, is I think that Lerone Murphy has gotten a little bit of a gift, and I don't mean gift in a bad way. I think gift in a way of fight style, matchup, right? You look at the last couple of fighters, right? He got thrown into the deep end against Zubaira Tukhugov, and then you got Ricardo Ramos, then Douglas Silva de Andrade, and then Makwan Amirkhani. AJ, real quick, you don't have to have a correct answer. If you don't, I'll bring the answer right now. But what is the one thing that's in common with pretty much all of those fighters?
Grappling.
That's it, right? Now you fight Josh Culibao, and even though he can submit you and he can grapple, he doesn't lean on his takedowns a lot, right? So you kind of got a favorable matchup. Now it's like, okay, one less thing to think about. My man Murphy got taken out 10 times in his last two fights, bro. You're gonna be happy to not have to deal with that. The question is, does Culibao say, I did my homework, I know you kind of struggle with takedowns, let's shift the game plan? Or do we see classic Josh Culibao swinging and banging, switching stances, popping them with feints and big shots?
I think we see classic Culibao right here, Derek. The one thing I like most about Culibao, yeah, he's flashy. He has a switching stance. He has pop on his shots. He can read things. He can set up traps. He knows all of this, the basics and how to get those done very efficiently. But what I like most about him is he brings that immigrant mentality. And I know he's from Australia, so I don't know if it's the same kind of thing they say over there. But here, that is that he fights like he has something to prove, like he has something to fight for. And the dirtier and more of a dog fight this becomes, Culibao steps to the occasion. And that's what you said, overachiever. You nailed it on the head, Derick, because that is him. When the going gets tough, Culibao bites down in his mouthpiece and says, yes, please. Like, this dude is a fun fighter to watch. And that's what makes this one hard, because Lerone Murphy, he has the skills, the ones and twos to get things done, be fluid on the feet. But so does Culibao, man. And they're going to go toe-to-toe. And Culibao, at least what history has proven, this guy does not falter, man. He will be there consistently. You got to put him out. You got to put him to sleep, or else he will be standing there against you in the entire cage the entire time. Now, do I think Culibao is going to go for the shot? No. But if he does get down there, does Lerone Murphy have the skills and at least the time worked on to be able to stand up? Because we know Culibao is as good as he is on the ground. We wouldn't consider him a ground specialist. He's not going to be able to hold a lot of people down. He can, but at least in his fights, we haven't seen him do it much. Has Lerone Murphy worked on the skills enough to be able to do that, Derick, to get up off the ground after being controlled? What do you think?
I think we saw it, bro, in the Makwan Amirkhani fight. He got held down the entire first round. The entire first round was held down. Second round, Makwan goes for the shot, gets kneed in his dome. That's one way of takedown defense, right? But the point is he wasn't able to get submitted by an Amirkhani who submits a lot of guys, especially when he gets that much control time. So, we'll see. There's holes in both of these guys' games, of course. The one thing that I will say, man, that it could be tricky. I really do like Culibao's, how he works off of the stance switches. He's constantly shifting back and forth, throwing weird looping chained shots together. Shots where you're like, where did that come from? That shouldn't have come from that angle, but it does, and it works, right? But then Lerone Murphy, if I had to make an assessment, I think Murphy is the more polished technical striker of the two. And if he catches angles, I think he will be able to land the more effective strikes against Culibao. Only problem is Culibao is down to make the fight ugly. And Lerone Murphy, ugly fights don't quite go as hand in hand as Culibao ugly fights do. So with that being said, man, once again, London, AJ, I got a decision. Lerone Murphy, let's go, baby. How you see it?
I can see where the bias he plays affect, Derick. The hometown crowd might be chanting for Murphy, but I'm rocking with Culibao. I'm not going the 1200 submission. I'm not going it. I can see it, but I'm actually going to take the TKO plus 375, open up the card in enemy territory. Round 3, a late one, Derick.
All right, fair enough, folks. So that is your picks for UFC London. If you like my picks, you can go ahead and tell me and drop a comment below. If you're rocking with my man AJ's picks, he is winning the head-to-head leadership. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely let us know in the comments. I guess that's the point right there. Just let us know who you're rocking with, and then we'll move forward from there. But folks, just because we got over the segment that makes you the money and all that, now this is the moment that you need to hang on to. This is going to be the opportunity where, AJ said it already, we highlight the sleepers of today, but the stars of tomorrow. This is the coveted Bloody Water Podcast sleeper section. Let's get it.
It's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're going to sleep on me and I'm going to wake you up.
All right, AJ, you got a really fun sleeper here at UFC London, and I thought it was really interesting because I wasn't sure. When you dropped the sleeper, I wasn't sure what side particularly were you trying to highlight, because you can highlight both of these fighters. Now, let's talk about it, AJ. We got Bruna Brasil versus Shauna Bannon, and Shauna Bannon's been at a lot of hype. Conor McGregor endorses her. She's Mama B coming out of Ireland, the next hot thing, and she's fighting Bruna Brasil, who had a lot of hype too, bro, which quickly got shut down by Denise Gomes, who is now the superstar that has usurped everybody's hype, but that's neither here nor there. Talk to me about this sleeper. Why is this appealing to you?
That's exactly why, Derick, because is the proof really there? Is the hype worth it for Mama B? The hype's coming out of everywhere, man. If you're on Twitter and you're in the MMA Twitter, people cannot get enough of Shauna Bannon, man. She is the next big deal coming in. A lot of people have been helping her out, clamoring for her. It's been a long time coming. She has the push of an entire nation behind her, but will that be enough for another fighter on the other side in Brazil that also had that same push, had that same momentum, had a lot of people clamoring for her, and then he gets taken away? So you had that. You had what the person of the opposite side has right now, and it got taken away from you. Is that hunger enough to really drive her back? You can see it over there. Mama B, 5-0 professionally. A lot of fights, KOs, decisions. She can get the fights done in multiple ways, but so can Bruna Brasil. And that's what makes this an exciting fight to me, folks, is the clamoring. Is the stardom going to be there for Mama B, or Is Bruna Bazil going to step back into the shoes she once filled? Either way, technique is there for both women. Excitement's there for both women. The star power is there, and the potential to grow from this is massive. I'm very excited for this fight. Derick, tell me what you think, and tell me about your sleeper.
I think this is going to be a fun fight. I think the thing that we need to bring into account is that it looks like she's unexperienced, 5-0 in MMA. Shauna Bannon has an extensive kickboxing career, did a little bit of Taekwondo as well. So you got to take that into account. And I'm interested to see if she can make this one ugly. Well, I mean, we saw how Bruna Bazil fared in her last fight when it got ugly. So I think this is going to be a fun one. I think you got to kind of keep an eye on both of these fighters, particularly. But AJ, I got a real one for you right here, bro. And normally the tables are turned. Normally I'm highlighting the women's MMA, and then you got the banger for us. Chris, the Problem, Duncan versus Yanal Ashmoiz, the Red Fox. This is all I got to say here, man. Yanal Ashmoiz, man, this dude came into the UFC scene, made a massive splash against Sam Patterson when he knocked my man out with one of the most nasty counter lefts that you're going to see on a UFC highlight tape or whatever the case may be. But he has a real issue on his hand in Chris Duncan. Got the split decision against Omar Morales, the Venezuelan fighter, very experienced. Got that nasty finish in the Dana White Contender Series. The point is, both of these fighters finish guys, right? Duncan, extensive finishes. Ashmoiz, extensive finishes. But this is really the key here. Look at this, AJ. You'd be surprised that the Tapology folks and the people who are just fans, because this guy has a pretty massive fan base behind him, they're all going Ashmoiz, right? Duncan, yeah, he's got a little bit of love. If you look at the live betting odds right now, AJ, the live odds are -150 for Chris Duncan, +125 for Ashmoiz. So the betting odds, they don't believe in my man, but I'll just tell you this much, and let me just take this off the screen. I am going to do a rare thing that I normally do not do in sleepers, folks, but I'm going to say, if you are tailing my picks, I want you to sprinkle a little something on Ashmoiz right here. I think my man can play upset. It's got to be a sprawl and brawl candidate, but if he can get the job done and land the big shot, he gets this one taken care of. I'm really excited about Ashmoiz specifically, and I think he's going to have a very fruitful career. But then again, I think Chris Duncan will as well. I just think Ashmoiz gets it done in this one. What do you think, AJ?
Folks, you got to take Derick at full tilt right here, because I know my boy is serious. I'm pretty sure he put the sleeper in the Discord channel last week after like Sunday morning or something, because I saw it pop up and I was like, damn, plus, yep. Good steal. That was a hell of a fight. This one's going to be fun, folks. Tune in. Again, highlighting the stars of tomorrow today for your fine folks right here on the Bloody Water Podcast. This is going to be an absolute banger.
That's right. And with that being said, let's talk about a couple of the other bangers on deck. AJ, a little bit of a prelim pour-over. We got a little bit of time. Not a lot, actually, so we can only touch on a couple before we have to get out of here. But let's take a look, man. Davy Grant versus Daniel Marcos, right? This is going to be a fun one right here. Dangerous Davy Grant. This is what I wanted to talk about more than anything. It seems like he's been relegated to now you just have to fight everybody. You're an OG now. You have to fight for your spot in the UFC. Do you think Davy Grant can get it done against an undefeated bantamweight newcomer, Daniel Marcos?
I do think he can, Derick. Daniel Marcos is very dangerous. His speed is nice. He hits hard. But Davy Grant, I feel like he's at the time of his career where he's hit that milestone of being a solid gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. Let's see if he can pull this one out. What do you think?
I think that's a fair assessment. I don't know if dangerous Davy Grant can get it done, man. I just think the more you're matched up with these young, hungry guys, it's going to get tougher and tougher. And we saw Davy Grant in his last one. He had to fight tooth and nail in round 3 down a point to get this victory. It's just, I don't know. We'll see. Always love me some Davy Grant, though. Danny Roberts versus Johnny Parsons. That's going to be a fun one. Johnny Parsons, I do believe, is a Vegas guy out here. I just think someone's going to get knocked out in this fight. What do you think?
Oh, 100%, Derick. Johnny Parsons, honestly, don't know too much about him, but going up against Danny Roberts, this is going to be a very fun fight, an explosive out of the Roberts camp. This is going to be a fun one, Derick. Who'd you say you were leaning towards?
Johnny Parsons.
Okay, hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaning Vegas guy, man. You know, he gets it done out here. Showing a little bit of hometown love. Mark Jacasey versus Joel Alvarez, man. Alvarez back. Surprising that he's in just such a low spot right here. But when you're going against now D1 Mark Jacasey, you got to be careful. Here's the thing. I'm pretty sure Joel Alvarez's nickname is El Fenomeno. Let's find out if I was right on that one. El Fenomeno. Yes, sir. This guy is phenomenal, bro. 19-3. Look over here at the career. Yeah, you lost to Armin Sarukian in your last one. But before that, Moises, Joe Duffy, lost to Demir Ismagulov. The point is that like they were kind of building my man up, trying to get him like really high up there. Look at this. 11 submissions in the first round, 4 in the second, 1 in the third. Shout out to Tapology for like fixing their site so we give us some real stats. The point is 16 of 19 wins via submission. All I got to say here is that if Mark Chikasi goes in for a takedown, my man better be careful he does not get his neck snatched. What do you think?
This was going to be my sleeper if these fighters weren't as well known, Derek. But this one, bro, this one has banger alert, fight of the night written all over it. I'm excited to see which one of these matchups actually snags that coveted spot, because this one's going to be an entire card top to bottom.
Exactly, and that's why I want to highlight these last 2 fights here on the prelims. AJ, Brian Barberena, Mahmoud Murdoch. What the heck on the prelims? Bam Bam Barberena? I mean, listen. This is going to be a slobber knocker right here. The question is Murdoch going to just try to get this one to the ground and take away the strike into Bam Bam? What do you think?
I mean, if he's smart, he's going to. But the thing is, Bam Bam also has a little bit of tricky ground game for him as well, man. Crazy to see that they're, 5 fights from the bottom? Wow.
Yeah. Listen, Ketlin Vieira, Pani Kianzad, that's even more of a tragedy because both of these guys are like top 7 fighters in the women's bantamweight division, bro. So it's just like, how are they this low? But give it to me, man. I've been a big fan of Kianzad for a long time. She just seems to like just do enough sometimes to stay in her spot, but in the big moment, just kind of falters. And Ketlin Vieira, even though she lost her last one and now is back in the title chase and all that good stuff, man. I mean, this can be a very winnable fight for Ketlin Vieira. So how do you see it?
This is a very winnable fight for Ketlin Vieira, especially with the power she possesses. And I think after losing that last one, she's going to come back with a little bit more excitement in this one. Penny Kianzad, very, very dangerous as well, though. I honestly don't know which way I'm leaning for this one. Instantly, my mind goes Vieira, but Kianzad has a lot to offer as well.
Yeah, I have to go Vieira simply because of the ground game. You know, Kianzad, kickboxing, elbows, it's going to be tough to get her out of there, right? But if you get taken down by Vieira and she comes through with 15 minutes of pure focus, it's going to be a problem, man. And with that being said, folks, this is going to be a fun card. And I don't know where you guys are watching at, depending on your time zone, but this is an early start time. At least here on the West Coast, fight card starts at 12 p.m. Pacific, man. So, AJ, what is that? It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon for you, an early one, yeah?
Ooh, early one, Derek. We get to go to bed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Get to go to bed early. All right, folks. Well, we'll move on to the outro right here. Stacked card on deck, but do not forget, next week, AJ, it's the BMF title, baby. It's Poirier versus my man Gaethje, number 2, bro. This is going to be a fun one. We got plenty to talk about on that one, so we're going to just cut it short on this one, folks. If you have not subscribed yet and you're still watching, we appreciate you. Just do one extra favor for us. Just click the subscribe button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. You already know what time it is. AJ, get us out of here.
Folks, make sure that you're doing exactly what Derek just said. Helps us out so much. Hit that subscribe button, share with your friends, and most importantly, when you're taking one of our picks and your friend's taking the other, you're winning that money on him. Let him know, rub it in his face, let him know where he got the picks from, and tell him to go subscribe. Folks, if you were in the bar last week in Austin, Texas, you were over here at Revelry. I know a couple of you subscribed because a couple of you were in the wrong side of the picks. You gotta go with the boys over here at the Bloody Water Podcast. Make sure you're sharing it with your friends. Don't be a bad friend. Share it along. Hit that subscribe button. Also, join me over on soon to be YouTube. But join us in the community. It's good to see you all. Let's get out of here, Derek.
All right, folks, you heard the man. Subscribe, hit him up on Twitch, soon to be YouTube. We'll have more details for you when the time comes. That's it for us. Catch us on Monday for the post show. All right, folks, until next time. Peace.